Hey everyone. Ever wondered what would happen if Deku conquered? Let's find out. May 29th. We see all the guys from Class 2B gathered at the exit. Setsuna, why can't we go? She said, clearly annoyed. Tetsu, remember, today the girls are in charge of taking care of the dorms and cleaning them, so they can't go. Sorry, he said, empathetically. Yui, then why is the whole Class A going? She said, a bit annoyed though she didn't show it. Monoma, because stupid Class A has Midoriya, who never goes to parties, so he volunteered to clean the dorms so all his classmates could go out, he said, as the girls nodded in understanding. Tetsu, that Midoriya, sacrificing his fun so his friends can have a good time, he's quite something, he said, shedding comedic tears. Awase, well, we have to go, it's getting late. Don't wait up, girls, he said, bidding farewell along with the guys. Girls, yeah, they said, sounding bored. After that, the guys rejoined the rest of Class 2A except for Izuku, even Todoroki had agreed to go. They left, leaving the girls behind. Ibara, well, we have no choice but to start cleaning, she said, and all the girls nodded. After a while of cleaning, they noticed it was already 5 p.m. and they had nothing else to do. Kendo, hey, girls, what if we go for a walk? She suggested, but they saw light raindrops start to fall, eventually turning into a heavy downpour. Reiko, seriously? That's just our luck, she said sarcastically, as they all nodded in agreement. After a while, seeing the rain didn't stop, they headed back to their rooms since it was already 8 p.m. They were tired from all the cleaning, so they said their goodbyes and went to their respective rooms. May 30th. We see all the girls, one by one, waking up and being surprised that the guys hadn't returned yet. Kendo, still not back? She said, watching as all her friends shook their heads. Reiko, no news or anything from them, I'm starting to worry, she said, concerned. Ibara, and the rain hasn't stopped either. I pray to the Lord that my classmates are safe and nothing happens to them, she said, clasping her hands in prayer. Kanoko, let's hope they're okay, she said, worried. Pony, I think they might have stayed in a hotel to avoid the rain, she said, thoughtfully, as everyone nodded. Yui, maybe you're right, she said, thoughtfully. Kendo, then we have no choice but to wait, she said, as they all nodded. Kanoko, oh look, a video, she said, looking at her phone. Kanoko caught everyone's attention with her surprised and horrified expression as she dropped her phone to the floor. Ibara, what's wrong, Komori, are you okay? She said, concerned. Kanoko, this can't be, she said in shock. Setsuna, what can't be? She said, confused. At that moment, Kanoko showed her phone to everyone to see something that would leave them in shock. In the video, we can see the center of Japan, total chaos. There wasn't a place without destruction. The video was being recorded by a man standing on top of a building. Man, to all who can see this video. Please, don't expose yourselves to the rain, he said, crying. Everything was normal, but suddenly something happened. The rain isn't good. I don't know if it's because of a quirk or not, but please, if you see this, don't go out, and remember, the rain isn't normal, he said before jumping off the building. End of the video. Reiko, this must be a joke, right? It's so obvious it's acted, she said, scared. Yui, I don't think so, she said, showing her phone where several people were asking for help from their homes. The girls became more terrified as they found people being attacked by others, but the weird thing was that they had marks and black things coming out of their eyes and mouth. They were speechless. Kendo, this must be a damn joke, she said, scared. Ibara, Holy Mary, Mother of God. She started to pray. Pony, I have an idea, she said, getting everyone's attention. In my room, I have a drone. With this, we can see outside the UA and even reach the center of Japan, she said, and everyone nodded. Setsuna, then. Let's go to the rooftop, she said, but Reiko stopped her. Reiko, didn't you hear? She said, serious. Ibara, the rain supposedly is dangerous, she said, scared. Yui, do you think it was a villain? She said, scared. Kendo, no one is capable of such power, to change the rain, how could it have been caused? She said, worried. Pony, I'm already connected to the drone, now, outside, she said, so Kendo carefully opened the window so the drone could go out without getting hit by a single raindrop. Setsuna, well, I don't think there's anything to worry about. When All Might finds out who's responsible, they'll stop him, and everything will go back too. Pony, oh my god, she said, scared. Kendo, what's wrong? She couldn't finish as she was shocked just like all her classmates. The UA, it was a disaster. Mutilated bodies, people with the traits that the rain gives walking through the hallways, but what scared them the most was seeing the number one hero's body there, on the floor, being eaten by one of the rain's infected. Kendo, quick, lock everything up, she said, prompting Ibara to nod and start closing everything. As soon as Ibara finished locking up, the girls started gathering in the living room. Yui, so it was true, she said, frightened. Kendo, okay, we don't need to panic. It's probably just a passing crisis. Look, we'll stay here until everything settles down. We have food for 20 students for 2 weeks, and there are 7 of us. That means our food will last us for about 2 months, so we have to ration it and we'll be fine. Understand? She said, as all the girls nodded. Reiko, so, we just have to wait? She said, scared. Ibara, the Lord will help us through this crisis so we can overcome it, she said, praying. At that moment, it was comforting to know that Ibara put faith first to ensure everyone's well-being. Setsuna, okay, then we'll just have to wait for all of this to pass. How hard can it be? She said, trying to calm herself. Ibara, we don't know, but we'll get through this together, she said, as all the girls nodded. After that, the girls started to relax a bit. Being united was comforting. They laid out futons on the floor and, like little girls, began spinning around on them. They started playing pillow fights, and due to tiredness, one by one, they fell asleep until they were all asleep. May 31st. We see Kendo gradually waking up, and soon, all her classmates did the same. Kendo, it wasn't a dream, she thought, sitting up on her futon. At that moment, all the girls did the same. Ibara, you all think the same as I do, right? Yui, it wasn't a dream, she said, clenching her fists. Setsuna, okay, let's calm down, girls. By now, there should have been news that a cure was found or that everything was under control, she said, smiling, but her smile faded as she checked her phone. Yui, there's no signal, she said, worried. Ibara, no TV signal either, she said, concerned. Kanoko, or radio signal, she said, equally worried. Reiko, you know what worries me, she said, serious. I've been trying to use my quirk, and it simply doesn't work, she said, scared. At that moment, all the girls tried to use their quirks, but none of them worked. Kendo, what's happening? She said, scared. Ibara, we can't use our quirks, she said, equally worried. Yui, okay, let's calm down. We need to think rationally. It seems like the effects of the rain that's causing all this are canceling out the effects of our quirks, but how? She said, thinking. Kendo, I don't know, but for now, let's just go have breakfast, she said, as all the girls nodded. At that moment, they all had the necessary breakfast, not too little but not too much, just enough to fill them up. After that, they all returned to the living room where they began to plan what they could do. Time skip. June 24th. Kendo, day 26 since the rain started, and it still hasn't stopped. Thanks to UA's good drainage, it hasn't flooded yet, but it's only a matter of time before it gets ruined due to lack of maintenance. This past month has been tough. Turns out we were wrong about the food, so now we only have enough for 5 days. The girls have started to worry, and I'm trying to keep them calm, she said, speaking into a recorder. I don't know how much longer I can handle this, she said, stopping the recording. At that moment, Kendo heard someone calling her. Ibara, Kendo. Come eat, she said calmly. Ibara Shiozaki, the only girl who hadn't had problems so far and even offered to give her food to her classmates, but they refused. They couldn't let anyone go hungry. She was another one who had kept calm in the group, but she was also one who was about to collapse due to so much stress. Kendo went down to eat, and the first thing she noticed was all the girls with blank expressions, staring at their nearly empty plates. The food had been rationed again to make it last longer, but it was very little. Some were even left hungry. But before Kendo could sit down, she looked through the large closed glass door of the common room and saw someone approaching. Kendo, girls. Someone's coming, she said, frightened. At that moment, all the girls got a closer look and were shocked. It was their classmate Monoma, but not as they remembered. He was covered in something black that was also falling from his eye sockets, and the footsteps from the mud didn't help. Yui, don't worry, the door is almost indestructible, she said, scared. But no one expected Monoma to headbutt the metal door with one blow, breaking it and entering. The girls quickly tried to escape, but they weren't fast enough to stop Monoma from lunging at Kendo. They were all scared, and she was trying to struggle with Monoma, but his strength was inhuman. Monoma was close to biting her, and she just started crying. Kendo, girls. I'm sorry. Survive, do it for me, okay? She said, accepting her death. Bang! That's what they heard, and all the girls saw Monoma's head explode from a bullet. Well, I thought I was the only survivor, he said, bringing a glimmer of hope to the girls. Are you all okay? Asked a hooded young man. On June 24th. Wow, I thought I was the only one left alive, he said, giving hope to the girls. Are you all okay? Asked a hooded young man. At that moment, all the girls saw him. They thought they were the only survivors. At that moment, their fear, their worries, their horrors disappeared. Seeing the hooded young man in front of them, their savior, the young man slowly approached them. It's a surprise that you all survived. I'm glad, Miss Kendo, he said with a smile, confusing the girls. Kendo, how do you know my name? She said, scared, while all nodded. Oh, of course, you don't recognize me with this thing on, he said, taking off the hood that covered his mask, revealing his eyes and hair. At that moment, all the girls recognized him instantly, that hair color and those eyes. Kendo/Reiko/Setsuna/Yui/Ibara/Pony/Kanoko, Midoriya, they said happily. All the girls, although they hadn't spoken much with him during their time at the academy, had seen his heroic deeds, what he had accomplished. Each one had tried to approach him, but he was always with his friends, so they never had a chance to get close to the boy. At that moment, they all felt so relieved that some were shedding tears of happiness. Finally, someone found them. Now they just needed to know what happened. Ibara, Midoriya, we need to ask you, what happened? She said, gesturing for everyone to agree. Izuku, I'll answer all your questions, but first, we need to get out of here. This place is no longer safe. Put these on, he said, pulling hoods out of his backpack. Setsuna, what are these, Midoriya? She said, confused. Izuku, these are special hoods, they don't let a single drop of water through. You all need to cover up and keep your faces down, not a single drop can touch you. Understood? He said, astonishing the girls. Kanoko, how did you get all this? She said, surprised. Izuku, I made them, he said, impressing them even more. Yui, how? She said, slightly impressed. Izuku, Miss Yui, society has gone to hell. If I wanted to survive, I had to learn how. I didn't know how to make them, but necessity taught me, he said, surprising the girls, as they knew the boy was very polite and never cursed. Right now, everything is very bad, girls. It's kill or be killed, and you won't just have to kill infected people, but survivors too, he said, shocking the girls. Ibara, what? But killing is a sin, Izuku interrupted her. Izuku, I know it's a sin, Miss Shiozaki, he interrupted, but there are no good people left. If you don't kill them, they'll kill you. You can't trust anyone so easily. But right now, I'm about to contradict myself, he said, confusing the girls. Come with me and survive, he said, extending the hoods to them. At that moment, all the girls looked at each other and nodded. Kendo, we'll go with you, she said seriously, but on one condition, she said, looking at Izuku, when we arrive, you'll tell us what happened. She said, prompting Izuku to nod. Izuku, okay, put them on and let's go, he said, gesturing for everyone to agree. The girls put on the hoods, but they had a peculiar smell. However, they didn't say anything, they just put them on and left. For the first time in almost a month, they could see the grass, the trees, the outskirts of the academy. They didn't like it. Mutilated or eaten bodies, infected people everywhere, people who were still alive asking for help as they were being eaten, a scene no one would want to see. They just followed Izuku as he walked as if nothing was wrong. The girls were confused. Wasn't he a shy boy, the one who helped people in need? And now he just walks among mutilated bodies as if nothing, even claiming to have killed people. They were a little scared, but they just continued on the path. They followed Izuku until they reached the north side of the academy, where they saw a large metal door with a padlock and Izuku putting in a key. Izuku, we're here, he said seriously as he opened the door. When the door opened, all the girls were impressed. Was this a bunker or a mansion? They thought, surprised. Izuku, if you're wondering why it's so luxurious, it's because Director Nezu used this as a home, he said, so the girls would understand. The first time I came here, I was surprised too, he said, chuckling lightly. All the girls looked at each other and nodded. Kendo, let's sit down, I want you to tell us everything, she said as the girls nodded. Izuku just nodded back and sat on the sofa. Izuku, what do you want to know? He said seriously. Yui, first, how did you discover this bunker? She said seriously. Izuku, oh, Miss Yui, that's a bit of a tough story, but I'll tell you, he said as all the girls paid attention. What happened was. Flashback. May 32nd. We can see a green-haired young man running through the hallways, scared. He ran frantically after seeing Aizawa trying to kill him, his body covered in black things and his eyes. He was confused. Why did Aizawa want to kill him? What happened to all the people? He ran as fast as he could but inevitably got tired. At that moment, he saw Aizawa approaching him with the intention to kill him. He just closed his eyes, awaiting his fate, but suddenly a hand or paw came out of a door, pulling him inside and closing it again. Nezu, young Midoriya, he said worriedly. Izuku, Director Nezu, what's going on? He said scared. Nezu, young man, the rain, it's not good, don't let it touch you, he said, but Izuku got scared when he saw small black drops coming out of the director's eyes. In the north of the academy is my house, it also functions as a bunker. I need you to go there and survive. If you find someone else who's alive, save them. You must stop this problem, he said, as Izuku watched his arms sink into a mass of blackness forming around him. He quickly grabbed a gun, scaring Izuku, but he quickly pointed it at his own head. Nezu, young man, for me, it's too late, but take this, he said, tossing some keys, also take the gun and get out of here. Remember, it's kill or be killed, he said, about to pull the trigger. Izuku, no, director, don't do it, I'll save you, he said, scared. Nezu, no, young man, I don't have time left, he said, about to shoot himself. Izuku, but how do I stop this? He said, worried. Nezu, Vector Industries, he said before shooting himself in the head. At that moment, Izuku was in shock. Did the director just shoot himself? He looked back, seeking salvation, looking for something to help him, but he saw nothing. He was scared. Was the rain toxic? What should he do? He repeated this multiple times until he came to a conclusion. He would survive and help those in need. He was about to leave the office when he turned back one last time to look at the director's body and saw the gun. Izuku, I'll take it, he thought before leaving the office and running straight to the door. When he saw it was raining, he got scared. He had no way to leave the school. He wondered what the rain did. He would risk it, but he saw a girl running from infected people come out into the rain. At that moment, Izuku was about to rush to help her but stopped when he saw the girl start screaming in pain. With tears in his eyes, he watched as the girl began to transform into the same thing that had consumed the director. He was crying. He wanted to help her, but he had to survive. Izuku, I'm sorry, he said as he shed tears and began to run to the classrooms, looking for something to cover himself so he could leave the academy. He quickly went to the support course workshop and found it. He found the prototype suit he had been working on with May. He began to look for May in the hope that she was okay, but he didn't see her. He searched for her, scared, thinking she might be dead. Crying, he took the suit and left. He had seen enough deaths, it would hurt too much to see someone close to him die. He just took the prototype of his suit and covered himself to head to where his new home would be. End of flashback. Izuku, and that's what happened. Any other questions? He said, looking downcast. Ibara, what is the rain doing? She said scared as all nodded. Izuku, the rain kills the body from the inside out, he said as the girls watched him. It makes your body rot and slowly eats your lungs and organs, leaving only an empty shell that this rain virus controls. It's attracted to other humans who haven't been infected and tries to bite them to suck everything out and create a new shell to control, he said seriously as the girls looked at him with fear. Setsuna, so you're telling me it turns them into zombies? She said scared. Izuku, technically, he said seriously. At that moment, all the girls took some time to process what was happening. Izuku understood this so he left them alone for a while. While they were thinking, Izuku prepared the food. They snapped out of their trance when they smelled something delicious. Kanoko, food? She said confused. Izuku, dinner is ready, he said calmly, revealing a large meat pie he had prepared. At that moment, the girls were excited to see so much food. They hadn't eaten well for a long time because they had to ration the food. Izuku, looks like you're hungry. Eat as much as you want, he said as he sat down and passed the plates while all nodded. At that moment, tears of happiness welled up in all of them because of the exquisite food. They began to eat as if there were no tomorrow until they finished it. Finally, after almost a month, they were satisfied. Yui, thank you for the food, Midoriya, she said in a calm tone. Izuku, no problem, but I want you to listen to me, he said seriously. So they all looked at him. There's nothing left to do here in the academy, and I've run out of provisions, he said, scaring them all. Tomorrow we'll leave here, he said, leaving them all shocked. Kendo, but where will we go? She said worriedly as all nodded. Izuku, to search for provisions and a new shelter, he said seriously. Ibara, and how will we do that? She said confused and scared. Izuku, first, I'll give you something to cover yourselves and defend yourselves against the infected and other survivors. Tomorrow, we'll leave first thing in the morning, so sleep well, he said seriously. Kanoko, but what will we do? She said. So they all looked at her. I mean, what is our goal? Will we just wander forever trying to survive? She said seriously. Izuku, no, we'll go to Vector Industries and stop this crap, he said as they all nodded. Ibara, but where is that? She said confused. Izuku, in Manhattan, United States, he said as they all widened their eyes. We'll cross the border and get there, he said, looking at the girls. I'll ask you one last time, he said looking at all of them, will you help me stop all this crap? He said as he raised his hand. Kendo, I'll help you, she said with a determined smile. Yui, me too, she said the same. Ibara, and me, she said the same. Pony, me too, she said with a smile. Kanoko, I'll go with you, she said raising her fist. Reiko, yes, she said determinedly. Setsuna, I'll join, she said with a smile. Izuku, well, I told you, tomorrow morning we'll leave, so get ready, not just your things, but also mentally. What you'll see out there is nothing like anything you've seen before. Sleep, tomorrow I'll wake you up, he said as all the girls nodded. Tomorrow we'll leave, he said seriously as he left. I'll protect you, director, I promise. I'll stop all of this, I promised, and I'll fulfill it, he said with a determined smile. I'm very happy to find you all, he said, changing his smile to a warmer one. It seems I'm not the only survivor, he said as he lay down on his bed. On June 25th. We see a green-haired person waking up. Izuku, today is the day we leave this darn box, he said, already irritated. When he came down, the first thing he noticed was all the girls already prepared with just a few things at hand. The girls, upon seeing the green-haired one, couldn't help but blush and just turn their heads, confusing Izuku. Izuku, what's wrong? He said, puzzled. Yui, why your pants, she said, with a slight blush. The green-haired one, upon looking properly, noticed he wasn't wearing pants and only had boxer shorts and his long-sleeved shirt on. The girls, knowing him, thought he would be embarrassed, but he wasn't. Izuku, oh, just that, he said, confused. Okay, I'll go change, wait for me, he said, heading back up. After a moment, the girls chatted among themselves until they saw the green-haired one come down wearing the same outfit they saw him in the first time. Izuku, ready? He said, puzzled. Ibara, but Midoriya, we don't have anything to cover ourselves from the rain, she said, confused. At that moment, Izuku opened a closet where various suits could be seen, all of them his, but if cut, they would fit the girls perfectly. Izuku, choose whichever you like, he said, motioning the girls towards the closet. Yui, who was almost the same height as the green-haired one, had the suit fit her. They just had to adjust it a bit because hers wasn't as developed as his. On the other hand, the only one for whom a suit fit perfectly was Kendo. The girls blushed a little, though they wouldn't admit it. The green-haired one's suit smelled good, it had his scent, but a scream was heard from Kanoko when she felt a hand start to touch her. Kanoko, what are you doing? She said, blushing. Izuku, sorry, I just have to measure you perfectly, I can't let any drops fall on you, I couldn't let anything happen to you, he said seriously. At that moment, all the girls felt something warm inside them. It wasn't love, it was more like a feeling of protection. They felt safe with the green-haired one. Kanoko, oh okay, do it quickly, she said with a blush. Izuku continued measuring until he had to reach the bottom part of the waist. Izuku, Kendo, he said, somewhat nervous. Kendo, what's wrong? She said, confused. Izuku, see, could you measure Kanoko from this part, please? He said with a slight blush. Girls, okay, he's still the same, they said, somewhat touched by the green-haired one. After that, Kendo smiled and started measuring Komori's hips so that the suit would fit her well. After that, the green-haired one continued with all the girls until he reached Ibara. Izuku, Shiozaki, we have a problem, he said seriously. Ibara, what's wrong? She said, nervous. Setsuna, what's wrong with her? She said, equally nervous. Izuku, her hair, he said seriously. It's too big, it couldn't fit into the suit, he said, looking at Ibara. You'll have to cut it, he said seriously. At that moment, all the girls were a little upset. Kendo, what do you mean she has to cut it? You, being a guy, don't know how hard it is for hair to grow that way, she said, annoyed. Ibara, I won't cut my hair for anything, you know how hard I've worked to nourish my vines so they would grow nicely. Izuku just looked at her with a serious look. Don't look at me like that, I bet if you were asked the same thing, you wouldn't do it, she said, annoyed. Izuku, maybe you're right, he said seriously. If you don't want to cut your hair, don't do it, I'll do my best to make the suit fit you, I'm sorry for bothering you, he said with a smile, heading for some scissors. Yui, don't you think we went a bit too far? She said seriously. Reiko, he took us in and gave us food, saved us from whatever Monoma had become, and on top of that, he gives us the chance to go with him knowing we'll be more of a burden than help, she said seriously. Pony, you should apologize to him, she said seriously. Kendo, yeah, I think you're right, she said, repentant. Ibara, we're terrible people, she said, likewise. But at that moment, we see Izuku coming out with some kind of ties and going towards Ibara. Izuku, look, Shiozaki, I got these ties, you can make 2 ponytails and tie them to your body, then they won't be able to use your hair to grab or hurt you, he said with a smile. At that moment, all the girls understood, it was true, Ibara's hair, being so long, could easily be grabbed, to hold her or hurt her. They realized, Izuku wasn't just doing it so the suit would fit, he was doing it so nothing would happen to her. Ibara, Midoriya, she hugs Izuku. I'm sorry for talking to you like that, thank you for what you do for us, even though we would be a burden, you want us to go with you so that nothing happens to you, you're a great person, please forgive us, she said as Kendo nodded with her head down. At that moment, Ibara blushed a bit as she felt Izuku's right arm embracing her. Izuku, you know it's okay, Shiozaki, he said with a big smile. I would never get mad at you guys, he said, smiling. But you must learn something, he said, changing to a serious expression and moving away from Ibara. Sacrifice will be crucial when it comes to surviving, he said seriously as he rolled up his left sleeve. The girls were shocked to see how the green-haired one only had a piece of wood simulating an arm. An infected bit me, he said, scaring them all. But before the infection spread to me, I managed to cut off the arm where it bit me. That day, I almost died. If it weren't for finding the infirmary, recovery girl healed me. We were escaping together but they caught up, and she, he said, starting to cry. She sacrificed herself for me. She told me to live and to stop all of this, and I will do that, he said with a determined look and a few tears. At that moment, all the girls didn't know what to say, all they could do was feel sorry for the green-haired one as they hugged him. Izuku, I'm sorry for that, he said, laughing a bit. I'll go get my things, I'll be back, he said, prompting the girls to nod as Izuku left the room. Setsuna, did he really lose an arm? She said, feeling awful for the green-haired one. Ibara, and I said all that just because I didn't want to cut my hair, she said, angry with herself. Kendo, so he got bitten, and to survive, he had to cut off an arm. That takes courage, she said as all the girls nodded. But they didn't continue their conversation because they saw the green-haired one enter with a backpack and a few weapons. Izuku, for now, I'll carry the weapons. We can't risk it since you don't know how to use them, he said seriously, prompting all to nod. Well, ready? Let's go out, he said, leaving with the girls. As they were heading towards the academy's exit, everything seemed fine, they were talking among themselves, everything perfect, until they saw the entrance of the academy. It was full of infected, there was no way out. Izuku made a decision. Izuku, okay, I have a plan, he said seriously. Setsuna, and what is it? She said seriously. Izuku, someone will be the bait. Kendo, you go, he said seriously, scaring them all. Kendo, but I don't want to die, she said, scared. Izuku, let me finish, he said so all the girls could see him. Kendo, take this weapon, he said, handing her a rifle. I'm giving it to you just in case, don't shoot it. When you see my signal, run to the entrance. See that building over there? He said, pointing to an abandoned building for the girls to nod. Climb up to the rooftop and wait for me there. Pony, what will you do? She said, scared. Izuku, save them, he said, determined. The girls were scared to see Izuku standing in front of all the infected and firing 3 shots into the air. Izuku, come for me, you bastards, with your faces uncovered, he shouted. At that moment, all the infected started to chase him in the opposite direction of the girls. Yui, that's our signal, she said seriously, prompting the girls to nod and start running. Girls, please take care of yourself, Midoriya, they thought, worried. The girls headed to the abandoned building and luckily saw no infected there. They climbed up to the rooftop but couldn't see any trace of Izuku. They started to worry until they saw him. He was coming out through the entrance of the academy, walking calmly with his weapon emitting smoke. He saw the girls and told them to come down. The girls descended. Reiko, you're an idiot, seriously, risking yourself like that, just for us. You don't even know us, she said, tapping the green-haired one's chest. Izuku, but you guys are my priority now, he said seriously, blushing a bit, making the girl smile. Nothing will happen to you. Now, let's go, he said seriously, starting to walk with the girls. Kanoko, and now where are we going? She said, walking through the muddy streets around the buildings. Izuku, to a bright future, he said, making all the girls smile, even Yui. And about what you said earlier, Yanagi, he said, so everyone could see. I think this would be a good opportunity to get to know each other. My name is Izuku Midoriya. And I am the one who will end the rain, he said with a determined smile. And so, our survivors introduced themselves to each other and continued on their way to stop the rain and to see together a bright future. We can see how our group of survivors passed through the center of Japan without being detected, thanks to the cloaks that covered them. Izuku, okay, we'll enter that store, grab whatever we can, and then head to the forest, he whispered for the girls to nod in agreement. After that, Izuku and the girls entered the shopping center with extreme caution. The first thing they found was a supermarket, but unfortunately, it was completely filled with infected people. Izuku carefully took a step back. Izuku, girls, quietly take the escalator upstairs. Don't make any noise. We'll try our luck at the second supermarket upstairs and hopefully find some food, he whispered. Kendo, all right. Let's go, she whispered back. As they climbed, the first thing they noticed was that the second floor was fortunately empty. They barricaded it so that no infected could enter. Izuku, oh. That's good. Finally, a place to rest a little in peace, he said, adjusting his backpack to use it as a pillow. Ibara, so, what do we do? She asked, standing in a circle with the girls. Yui, I don't know, there's not much we can do at the end of the world, she said, laughing a little. Setsuna, hey, girls, she said, smiling and pointing at a clothing store. Kendo, do you think that's a good idea? She questioned the idea. Setsuna, come on, how often do you get the chance to try on clothes all by yourself? She said with a smile. Ibara, it doesn't sound like a bad idea, she said with a smile. Kanoko, let's do it, she said, also smiling. Pony, it's an excellent idea, she said, equally enthusiastic. At that moment, all the girls entered the clothing store. They started trying on dress after dress after dress. Izuku just watched with a smile. It's good that they're having fun while they can. He just laid his head back, waiting for them to finish. After a while, the girls started to dress as they came. They were happy, knowing they couldn't take anything to avoid carrying too much, but it was relaxing to have a girl's time. They left, but no one noticed that a hanger got stuck in Kanoko's suit without her realizing it. This hanger had a dress hanging on it, and she was about to pass through the door when Izuku noticed. He quickly got up and tackled Kanoko back into the store, ending up in a very compromising position. Kanoko, what are you doing? She said, frightened. Kendo, Midoriya, what are you doing? She said, somewhat annoyed. Yui, what are you trying to do to her, huh? She said, about to hit him. Ignoring them, Izuku turned to Kanoko and removed the hanger that was stuck in her suit. At that moment, all the girls were confused. Ibara, a dress? She said, puzzled. Izuku, it hasn't been a month yet, and if you notice, the shopping center still has electricity, he said, so the girls could see. If Kanoko had gone out with that dress, the alarms would have gone off, and all the infected would have come after us. I'm sorry if I hurt you, but I acted on reflex, he said, extending his hand to help Kanoko up. As I said, Kodai, he said, for all of them to hear, before I do anything to hurt you, I'd rather die, he said, impressing the girls. If I'm here, it's to make sure nothing happens to you, not to harm you, he said, serious. At that moment, the girls realized they had made a mistake. Izuku wasn't that kind of person. What were they thinking? Yui, Midoriya, I'm sorry, she said, embarrassed. Izuku, no, it's okay. I know you all look out for each other, he said, laughing a little. The girls blushed a little at that moment because of that smile. It was warm, almost childish to a certain extent. That was one of Midoriya's powers, his smile. It brought warmth to whoever saw it and gave a feeling that everything would be alright. Reiko, well, what do we do now? She said, a little flushed. Izuku, we'll spend the night here, he said, serious, we need to rest. You all set everything up, I'll go look for something to eat and cook, he said, as the girls nodded. After that, the girls started to set up some futons. They chatted among themselves while Izuku went to look for provisions. After a while, Izuku returned, but they were confused to see that besides provisions, he also brought gasoline containers. Kendo, why are you bringing that, Midoriya? She asked, confused. Izuku, I saw a beauty down there that will help us escape tomorrow, he said, with a silly smile. Yui, what did you see? She asked, puzzled. Izuku, a Formula 1 car. It's on display, but if we're lucky, it's not blocked. However, we'll need to put gas in it because those cars don't come with gas to prevent theft, he said, chuckling to himself. Ibara, so, what will we eat, Midoriya? She said, confused. Though Ibara didn't show it, she was very hungry. It had been over 2 days since she had eaten anything. Izuku, first of all, why didn't you eat any of the meat pie yesterday? He said, confused. At that moment, all the girls started to remember. It was true, Ibara hadn't eaten any of that pie. They just looked puzzled. Izuku, you're a vegan, right? He asked seriously. Ibara just nodded with her head down. Izuku, okay, since you haven't eaten, he sighed, I'll prepare a feast for you all. I hope you eat, he said as they all nodded. At that moment, Izuku took out the hand stove he found in the supermarket and started cooking meat and vegetables. After a while, he came back with a big plate of meat for the 5 girls. Ibara looked sad, she couldn't eat meat, it went against her principles. She was thinking about going to sleep to endure the hunger, but Izuku turned around and then returned with another plate. Ibara looked sad, she couldn't eat meat, it went against her principles. She was thinking about going to sleep to endure the hunger, but Izuku turned around and then returned with another plate. Izuku, like Shiozaki, you deserve it, he said, placing the big plate in front of her. Ibara, with stars in her eyes, just started to eat while tears fell lightly. Ibara, it's delicious, thank you, she said, sobbing a little. Izuku just responded with a smile as he took out a cereal box and started eating. Kendo, don't you eat meat? She asked, confused. Ibara, oh, vegetables? She said, offering some of her plate. Izuku, oh, no problem, girls, you eat. I'm quite satisfied, so I'll just eat this, he said as he ate straight from the box. What Izuku didn't tell them was that the store was almost empty, it had already been searched. With what he found, he improvised to prepare food for the girls. He didn't mind eating as long as they were okay. Maybe the world had gone to hell, maybe powers had disappeared, but he still remained a hero. After that, the girls started to feel sleepy. Izuku, sleep, I'll watch over, he said with a smile as the girls nodded. After that, the girls fell asleep, and Izuku stayed awake to make sure nothing happened to them. The night passed, and it was 3 a.m. Izuku was still awake, though his head was nodding from tiredness. At this hour, a girl also woke up. Yui, waking up from a nightmare, saw the green-haired boy nodding off. She crawled like a caterpillar to him. Izuku, what's wrong, Kodai? Can't you sleep? He said, concerned. Yui, I can sleep, but you need it, she said, sitting next to the green-haired boy inside his futon. Lie down, she said, indicating her legs. At that moment, the green-haired boy, without objecting, lay down on her legs. He was very tired, he couldn't bear the fatigue anymore. Izuku, thanks, Kodai, he said with a smile. Yui, she said with a smile, call me Yui, and thank you for everything you're doing for us. If it weren't for you, we wouldn't be alive right now, she said, smiling. Izuku, then call me Izuku, Yui, he said, blushing a little at the girl. Yui, I just have one question, she said, looking at the green-haired boy, why do you do so much for us? She said, confused. Izuku, I don't want to lose anyone else, he said with a sad look. Yui, we can talk, if you want, she said with a slight blush. Izuku didn't respond, he had fallen into a deep sleep. Yui, with a smile, just started to play with his hair while stroking his head. After that, the girls started to wake up only to see Yui stroking the green-haired boy's hair as he slept deeply. Kanoko, what time is it? She asked, confused. Setsuna, I think it's 5 in the morning, she said, confused but looking at Yui, what are you doing? She said, confused. Yui, did you know he didn't sleep until 3 in the morning and would have continued like that just to make sure nothing happened to us? She said with a sincere smile. Kendo, really? She said, incredulous. Ibara, why does Midoriya do so much for us? She said, confused but grateful. Yui, he told me it's because he doesn't want to lose anyone else, she said with a sad smile while stroking his hair. Reiko, he's a good person, he puts our needs above his own. If the world hadn't ended this way, I'm sure he would have been an excellent hero, she said as all the girls nodded. Kanoko, well, it's time to wake him up, she said as the girls nodded. At that moment, Yui approached Izuku's ear. Yui, Izuku. It's time to wake up, she said in a calm tone. At that moment, Izuku slowly opened his eyes only to see all the girls looking at him. Izuku, oh, good morning, girls, he said with a calm smile. After that, he woke up better, and they started packing their things to leave. Kanoko, what if we take one last look at the supermarket to see if we find anything? She said as the girls nodded. Izuku, well, he said so the girls could see him, yesterday, I only found that stuff I brought aside from the cereal box. There was nothing else, but I wanted you all to eat well, so I managed to prepare everything so you could sleep without hunger, he said with a smile. At that moment, the girls felt bad. Did the green-haired boy really stop eating just so they would be okay? Kendo, are you telling me you only ate that cereal so we could all eat well? She said feeling somewhat guilty. Izuku, yes. Well, it doesn't matter. Let's go then, right? We'll find another supermarket with food on the way, he said, lifting the gasoline containers. Besides, I want to try out this baby, he said, smiling. At that moment, with a feeling of guilt, the girls nodded. They started to descend carefully to avoid the infected. They began to fill the car tank with gasoline while Izuku tried to start it with the cables. The girls finished filling the tank and carefully placed the containers on the ground, but accidentally Yui kicked one container. Since they were made of a material similar to glass, it fell to the ground, breaking and making a loud noise. At that moment, they started to hear the infected coming towards them. Without waiting, Izuku started shooting them all in the head, impressing the girls with his aim. He kept shooting at the infected, though it became increasingly difficult. An infected was about to bite him without him noticing, but a shot exploded its head. Ibara, did I kill it? She said in shock. Izuku, no, Shiozaki, you didn't kill it. They're not humans anymore, he said to reassure Ibara, trying to calm her down. After a while, the infected began to decrease along with the bullets. Izuku didn't have many bullets left. Elsewhere in the shopping center, we can see a young man looking for provisions until... Gunshots? He said, heading towards the location. After a while of running, he arrived at the place where the first thing he saw was people with hoods, but there was something that caught his attention. One of them was wearing red sneakers, those red sneakers he knew very well. With a smile, he took out his gun and started shooting at the infected. This caught the attention of the group, who were impressed to see another survivor. They kept shooting until they finished off all the infected. Gradually, the mysterious young man approached them, but he took out a gun aiming at Izuku while he did the same. Izuku, who are you? He said nervously while the girls were scared. I knew I didn't make a mistake with you, he said, confusing the group. So, you survived, huh? He said in a friendly mocking tone. Izuku, Kansas, Chan, he said, surprised. Izuku was shocked when he saw the guy. He was another survivor, and not just anyone, he was his rival and best friend. They stared at each other while Izuku shed a few tears. Izuku, Kachan. Son of a bitch, you're still alive, he said happily. Bakugo, of course, I don't even know how I survived that crap, but look at you, nerd, you're alive, he said happily. Izuku, and kicking, he said, fist bumping him. Ibara, Midoriya, who is he? she said, hiding behind Izuku like the other girls. Izuku, Katsuki Bakugo, my best friend, he said with a smile, impressing the girls. How did you survive? He said, happy. Bakugo, follow us and you'll find out, he said, confusing everyone. Izuku, us? He said, confused. Baku bro, I heard gunshots, did something happen? Asked a guy who wore almost the same clothes as Bakugo and had his hair down. Izuku, Kirishima? He said, impressed. Kirishima, that voice. Izu bro, he said, jumping to hug Izuku. Dude, you're alive, he said, patting Izuku's fist with his head. Izuku, and how did you guys survive? He said, surprised. Kirishima, Bakugo's mom called him when we were at the party. She told him she had just landed in London. This pissed off Bakugo because he wanted to go too, so he went without thinking twice, and I went with him when this happened. We stayed at his house for 10 days until the food ran out and we had to go out for more. Luckily Bakugo had these things and we could put together these suits. Now we're heading to London to look for Bakugo's mom and see if she's still alive, he said, while Bakugo just lowered his head a bit. Bakugo, the old lady. Even though she's annoying. She's my mother and I hope she's still alive, he said, shedding a few tears making everyone feel bad. Izuku, it's Mitsuki Bakugo. The strongest woman I know. It's obvious she's still alive, he said with a smile. Bakugo, I hope so. But who are they, nerd? He said, looking at the girls. Izuku, they were the girls from class 1B, remember from that guy who teased us that we were the worst class and stuff, he said, making faces while waving his hands. Kirishima, I don't want to sound rude but. Can they do anything? He said, confused. Yui, what do you mean, she said, somewhat annoyed like all the girls. Kirishima, are they a help? Or a burden? He dropped, making everyone go silent. The girls stayed silent. They wanted to hear the green-haired boy's answer. Izuku, they're a burden, he said, making the girls feel bad, but, he said for everyone to see, they're the best burden I could have asked for, he said with a smile while the girls blushed a bit but felt happy. You know Shiozaki already killed her first infected, he said with a smile. I'm so proud, he said, hugging Ibara while she blushed. The girls didn't know why but they felt a slight pain in their chest seeing this scene. Bakugo, nerd. Always so sentimental, he said, laughing a bit, and you guys? Where are you headed? He said, confused while Kirishima nodded. Izuku, Manhattan, he said, confusing the two guys. Kirishima, but why? He said, confused. Setsuna, we're going to Vector Industries, she said seriously. Bakugo, and why would you go there? He said, confused. Kanoko, because that's where they created the storm virus, and we want to see if there's a way to stop it, she said as everyone nodded. Izuku, like she said, he said while stroking Kanoko's hair who couldn't articulate words due to her blushing. Kanoko, super red. Bakugo, well. Right now we're heading to an abandoned mall on the outskirts of Japan. Shall we go? He said with a smile. Izuku, are you challenging me too? Bakugo/Izuku, a race, they said in unison with a smile. Izuku, girls. Get in, he said with a smile so the girls obeyed and got into the car. See you outside, I'll go out now, he said while Bakugo and Kirishima nodded. Izuku quickly got into the car and told the girls to put on their seat belts. They put them on without arguing. Izuku drove the car until he was next to Bakugo's car. Izuku, it will be a clean race, 2 hours of travel, the first to arrive will decide the loser's challenge, he said with a smile. Bakugo, I accept, he said, smiling as well. Kendo, is the race thing a joke, Midoriya? She said nervously. Setsuna, yeah. He's a calm guy. Right? She said the same. Izuku, hold on tight, he said with a smile. Kanoko, Midoriya wait, she said nervously. Izuku/Bakugo, 3, 2, 1. At that moment, the two boys took off as if there was no tomorrow. Kirishima was just screaming with excitement while the girl screamed in fear. They passed through different trees and avenues, hitting one or two infected until they finally reached the mall. The girls quickly got out of the car. Some nervous, some vomited, and others scolded the green-haired one. Reiko, are you an idiot? How could you do such a stupid thing, don't you think about us? She said, annoyed. Izuku, on the contrary. You are my top priority, he said with a smile, making the girls blush. Kirishima, the Midori Oz, charming since 1956, he said, mocking. Girls, we're not in love, they said blushing. Bakugo, repeat it until you believe it, he said, laughing. Izuku, come on, Bakugo, don't tease them, he said with a smile and a slight blush, shall we? He said for the girls to nod and stand behind him to enter the mall along with Bakugo and Kirishima. They entered and were a bit down by the atmosphere, but decided not to dwell on it and started looking for food. They split into groups, Izuku with the girls and Bakugo with Kirishima. They separated and said they would meet in an hour where they parked the cars. Each group went their own way to search. Now we can see Izuku and the girls in a hallway of the mall, although Izuku had all the girls piled up in the shopping cart as a reward for scaring them with the race. Now Izuku had 2 carts full of girls each. He just started looking at the cereals and vegetables in the same aisle. Izuku, Shiozaki, do you like vegetarian cake? He said as he watched Ibara's eyes sparkle. Ibara, yes, she said excitedly. At that moment, Izuku just let out a little laugh which made the girls blush at how cute the green-haired boy looked. Who would have thought he was a crazy driver and an expert in weapons, they all thought with a slight sweat drop. Izuku just continued down the aisles while pushing the girls in the shopping carts. They picked up a few things. The girls asked Izuku if he could prepare their favorite dishes and he just nodded with a smile. They kept shopping and didn't realize that. Give me the food and the girls or you die, said a guy with a gun to the green-haired boy's head. At that moment, everyone turned to see and saw an overweight guy with a lustful smile looking at the girls. Izuku, who are you? He said, on guard. ? Just give me the girls and the food and we can all leave alive, he said, laughing. Izuku, why do you want them? He said, annoyed. ? They'll serve me, he said, putting more pressure on the gun. The girls at that moment were scared. They didn't know what to do. They wanted to help the green-haired boy, but they didn't have a weapon or anything. But they saw it. They saw that smile on the green-haired boy, the smile that everything would be okay. Somehow that smile reassured them. Why are you smiling, idiot? He said, annoyed. Izuku, happy Death Day, he said, mocking. ? What the? At that moment, the guy fell dead from a shot to the head. Kirishima, I hate them, he said, annoyed. Izuku, everyone, he said but turned to see the girls. Are you okay? He said, worried. All the girls nodded but there was one who kept trembling. Izuku, are you okay, Yanagi? He asked. Reiko, trembling. At that moment, Izuku didn't hesitate and hugged Reiko. She blushed feeling the warmth of the green-haired boy. She just responded to the hug as she stopped trembling. Izuku, I promised you, this also goes for you, he said for the girls to see, if it's necessary to give my life. I'll give it, so that you are well, whenever I'm here nothing will happen to you, because I'm here, he said with a smile. At that moment all the girls felt the same warmth in their chests but with a blush, they just nodded with a smile. Kirishima, does he really charm them without realizing it? He thought with a sweat drop. After that, the girls finished taking what they wanted and headed towards the cars with Izuku and Kirishima. They got into a car with Izuku and Kirishima got into another with Bakugo. They quickly set course until they reached a place to rest. They already had their plan. Each would drive to the border of China with the United States where they would separate. Each had a different goal. They started driving but at a moderate speed. They wanted to enjoy the trip, because in this shitty world, this was a moment without worries. We can see cars driving on the empty roads of Japan. They kept going, stopping only when they found an empty hill to sleep. Bakugo and Kirishima managed to get hammocks for everyone, which would be a great help for a more comfortable sleep at night. Now we can see our group of main characters in their car. Kanoko, so where are we going, Midoriya? She said cheerfully. Izuku, we'll look for a place to spend some time, we need a break. In this crappy world, there will always be time to have fun. He said, smiling a bit while stroking Kanoko's hair, making her blush. Kanoko, what are you doing? She said, blushing. Izuku, sorry, but it helps me relax. You're too cute, you know? He said with a smile. As he said that, the girls felt a little pang in their hearts, and Kanoko felt her heart racing. She blushed but let Izuku continue to stroke her hair. It was comfortable and sweet of him. They continued like this for a while, but they couldn't find anything. This suggested that the journey would be long, so they decided to play a game. Reiko, what if we play yes and no? She said, shrugging. Ibara, how do you play? She asked curiously. Kendo, I think it's where we ask someone a question, and they can only answer with yes or no. She said, and Reiko nodded. Izuku, sure, why not? He said as he drove behind Bakugo. Ibara, well, I'll start with Kanoko. She said, and the mushroom girl nodded. Why did you let Midoriya stroke your hair? Do you like his hand? She asked, making Kanoko blush and Izuku too. Kanoko timidly nodded. Kanoko, yes, she said nervously. Izuku, hey, why didn't you tell me? Come here. He said with a smile while stroking her hair, and she blushed even more but allowed it. Setsuna, my turn, for Izuku. She said with a smile. Why do you only stroke Kanoko's hair? Is she your favorite? She asked, waiting for the green-haired boy's response, as did the others. Izuku, no. He said with a smile. I love you all equally. He said with a smile. If that's the case, you come here too. He said, starting to stroke Setsuna's hair, making her blush. Setsuna, this is very comfortable, she thought, blushing. The remaining girls just pouted and turned away. Izuku, when we get to the sleeping place, I'll do the same for you too, okay? He said affectionately, and the girls nodded with a blush. They continued for a while until Izuku began to feel tired. He saw Kirishima and Bakugo swapping turns driving, but he wasn't sure if the girls could drive, so he didn't risk it, but Pony, I can drive if you want. She said, catching everyone's attention. Everyone, can you drive? They said, impressed. Pony, in America, they teach us at 15 years old to be prepared for emergencies, and since we just have to follow the guy in front of us, the bomb guy, then yes, I can drive. She said with a big smile. At that moment, Izuku signaled to Kirishima, both stopped, and Izuku switched places with Pony. After that, they continued on their way to some hills that Kirishima remembered from a trip they had taken before. So they would take that place to sleep since it was lonely. Izuku, Pony, I can't thank you enough for knowing how to drive. He said, about to fall asleep. Pony, it's the least I can do for all you do for us. Now sleep, you deserve it. She said with a smile. At that moment, Izuku began to nod his head until he finally fell asleep. He was looking down since he didn't have anything to rest on until Reiko took him and laid him on her chest. Reiko, sleep well, you've earned it. She said as Izuku snuggled into her chest. Setsuna, well, now that Izuku's asleep, let's talk about girly stuff. She said with a smile. Kendo, like what? She said, confused. Setsuna, for example, who's going to be Izuku's favorite? She said with a smile. At that moment, all the girls blushed. They had never thought about it that way. Did Midoriya have a favorite? And if so, who was it? That's what the girls wondered. Yui, I think it's pretty obvious that it's me. She said seriously. He slept on my lap, and that's the proof of true love. She said with a slight smile. Kanoko, you were on a futon, so it doesn't count. She said teasingly, just to see Yui forming a depressive aura. Kendo, obviously, it's me. I'm the most well-endowed. She said triumphantly. Pony, you forget who we're talking about. It's Midoriya, the most innocent guy we know. Do you really think he pays attention to that? She said mockingly, seeing Kendo forming a depressive aura too. Ibara, I think I would be Midoriya's favorite. He even took the trouble to prepare a separate dish for me when he found out I don't eat meat, and he worried when he found out I hadn't eaten. Kanoko, no, it's me. Even his therapy is to stroke my hair. The mushroom girl said with a smirk. Setsuna, and what do you think, Reiko? She said, so all the girls looked at the gray-haired girl. All the girls felt jealous seeing Reiko hugging Izuku while he hugged her back, snuggling into her chest. They were sleeping so comfortably that there was even a smile on their faces. Girls, taking advantage, they said, with a vein popping on their foreheads. At that moment, Reiko gradually woke up and saw all the girls looking at her with a vein popping on their foreheads, except for Pony, but that was because she was driving. Reiko, what's up, girls? She said, with a touch of mockery. Yui, come here. She said, to take Izuku away and put his head on her chest, starting to stroke his hair. He looks so cute when he sleeps. She said with a smile. Ibara, his hair is so soft. She said, stroking Izuku's hair. Setsuna, really? She said as Ibara and Yui nodded, and she also started to stroke his hair. You're right, it's very soft. She said with a smile. Kendo, I want to try. She said, to stroke the green-haired boy's hair. Wow. She said, not stopping stroking him. Kanoko did the same and blushed as she felt the soft, curly hair of the green-haired boy. Pony, damn, she can drive, she thought with comic tears. But then they all felt a gaze on them, and when they looked in front, they saw Bakugo looking at them through the rear window of the car. Bakugo, what the hell? He said, confused. Bakugo, what the hell? He said, confused. But at that moment, all the girls made a sign to him that if he said something, they would kill him. Bakugo, I didn't see anything. So, as I was saying, he said, turning to Kirishima. After that, the journey passed peacefully until they finally reached the place where they would stay. At that moment, everyone got out. Yui woke up Izuku and told him to get off, and without opposing, he got off and started to stretch. Then the journey passed peacefully until they finally reached the place where they would stay. At that moment, everyone got out. Yui woke up Izuku and told him to get off, and without opposing, he got off and started to stretch. Bakugo, hey, nerd, I need to. He sees all the girls glaring at him, better not. He said, turning back. Kirishima, well, then we have food, charcoal, we just need some rocks and firewood to make a bonfire and cook. At that moment, Bakugo and Izuku start punching the tree. Bakugo, in Minecraft, you can do it, so why not here? He said annoyed. Izuku, yeah. He said, continuing to punch the tree. And as illogical as it sounds, they managed to get wood by hitting it. The girls and Kirishima decided not to say anything and just watched. Kirishima went to collect rocks, and in the end, they managed to build the bonfire. They cooked meat, but as always, Izuku took care of cooking a vegan dish for Ibara, and this time he cooked a vegan cake. This made Ibara drool at the mouth for such a treat, and thanking the green-haired boy, she began to eat. Izuku, it was very relaxing today, considering it's the end of the world, he thought with a smile. No matter what happens, he said, while all the girls looked at him, I'll protect you. He said with a big smile that made all the girls blush. Girls, yes, they said, blushing. Bakugo/Kirishima, unintentionally seducing them, they thought, impressed. And so, our survivors set up the hammocks to finally sleep. They lay down each in their hammock, but surprisingly, the mushroom girl moved to Izuku's hammock when no one was looking and put her hand on his hair. The unconscious green-haired boy began to stroke it while they looked at the night sky. Now we could see the starry night, although the stars were fading slowly because dawn was about to break. It was already 5 a.m. when the girls began to wake up. They had gotten used to waking up early. Kanoko, upon waking up, first tried to hug the green-haired guy pretending she was still asleep, but she realized he wasn't there. She quickly got up and accidentally stepped on a branch, alerting the others, but they calmed down when they saw it was just her. Setsuna, what are you doing? She said confused. Kanoko, I'm looking for Midoriya, he's not here, she said puzzled. Yui, you don't think he's gone, right? She said nervously. Kendo, no, it's impossible for him to have left us, she said starting to worry. Reiko, don't you think we're worrying too much? She said serious but also worried inside. But everyone's worry vanished when they saw the green-haired guy walking towards them, but they quickly blushed when they saw how he was coming. Ibara, Emmi Midoriya, why aren't you dressed? She said covering her eyes but peeking through her fingers. Izuku, oh, I went to train and took a bath in the lake, it's very relaxing, he said stretching. Pony, P put something on, she said blushing. Izuku, oh yes, sorry, he said going behind a tree to change. After that, they saw the green-haired guy come out wearing shorts and a comfortable shirt to start a fire and cut some vegetables. The girls approached to help, and he only asked them to cut vegetables and meat. He started seasoning everything, and the smell released when he threw it on the fire was enough to make the girls drool, and the remaining two woke up. Kirishima, what smells so good? He said confused as he woke up. Bakugo, that smell, nerd's food, he said exciting Kirishima. Kirishima, now that I recognize the smell, it's true, it's Izuburo's food, he shouted the same. They quickly woke up and headed towards where the green-haired guy and the girls were sitting, waiting for the food to be ready. Kirishima, oh man, you don't know how much I've been wanting to try your food again, he said drooling a little. Bakugo, what the spiky hair said, he said the same. Then, with a smile, Izuku simply took the pot off the fire and started serving the food on the plates they brought. He served meat for the 7 boys, and a mushroom and vegetable soup for Ibara and for himself. They started eating, and everyone enjoyed the green-haired guy's great delicacy, all with stars in their eyes. They finished it and asked for another round. After finishing, they were more than satisfied. Izuku, so, what will we do today? He said confused. Bakugo, I don't want to do anything, he said patting his stomach. Kirishima, me neither, he said the same. Izuku, well, I don't either, he said stroking Reiko's hair, making her blush. Yui, what if we don't do anything? She said for everyone to see. Izuku/Kirishima/Bakugo, oh my god, what a great idea, why didn't I think of that before, the three said in unison, slapping their faces. The girls just watched this with a drop of sweat. Izuku, well, I'll sleep a little more. Komori, come, he said confusing her, but she approached. Kanoko blushed massively as she saw the green-haired guy pick her up and hug her as if she were a stuffed animal. Izuku, you're very comfortable, he said burying his head in her hair to Komori's delight and jealousy of the others. Kanoko only felt the green-haired guy's breath close to her, giving her a strange sensation. As she felt anxious, her legs trembled, and her chest moved a little. She just ignored the sensation and went to sleep next to the green-haired guy. Girls, I curse not being small, they thought jealous. Kirishima/Bakugo, does he want to start World War III or what, they thought in unison. But to Kanoko's annoyance, the girls woke up Izuku and asked if they could go to the lake. He told them they didn't need to ask for permission, but they wanted him to go with them. He just agreed, and to the girls' jealousy, he took Kanoko as if she were a plush toy. She just moved her little legs while she was in Izuku's arms as if she were a little girl, until they arrived, and Kanoko pouted had to get out of the green-haired guy's arms. He just took off his shirt for the girls' delight and jumped into the lake. After that, the girls did the same. They didn't take off their clothes, they just stayed in their bras and underwear since conveniently they also worked as swimsuits. After a while of bathing, they came out, their skin had wrinkled, and when they came out, they sat on some logs that were there and started talking. Izuku, thank you very much, girls, he said with a smile, confusing everyone. Ibara, why thank you Midoriya? She asked confused. Izuku, I said it before, but I'll say it again, you are a burden, he said, saddening the girls. You are the best burden I could have asked for. Without you at this moment, I don't know if I would still be mentally okay, so I want to thank you for being with me and not abandoning me because of my craziness, he said laughing. At that moment all the girls were happy. It was a metaphor from the green-haired guy that they were a burden. Reiko, Midoriya, rather, thank you, she said with a smile. Kendo, if it hadn't been for you, I would have been eaten by Monoma, she said a little scared. Ibara, I would have fainted or gotten sick from hunger, she said the same. Yui, oh, that pervert would have taken us, she said trembling a little disgusted like the girls. Setsuna, that's why we want to thank you Midoriya, for everything you've done for us. We have no way to repay you, she said with a smile as everyone nodded. Izuku, he said so that everyone could see him. Girls, they asked confused. Izuku, call me Izuku, he said with a big smile that made them blush. Ibara/Yui/Kendo/Kanoko/Setsuna/Reiko/Pony, yes. Izuku, they said with a big smile. We could see how all our group of survivors was in a circle around a table. Izuku, so that will be the plan, we'll leave the continent, take a boat, and split up at the border, he said this with a serious look. At that moment, Bakugo and Kirishima nodded while the girls just watched. Bakugo, I want to get out of this crap already to reunite with the old lady, he said somewhat sadly. Kirishima, you'll see her again, you'll see, he said with a smile as Bakugo nodded. Izuku, so for now, let's start packing everything as we're leaving in 10 hours, he said seriously. At that moment, everyone nodded and dispersed to do their things. Now we can see how Izuku was sharpening a branch. Ibara, what are you doing? She said sitting beside Izuku. Izuku, oh, Shiozaki, I'm sharpening this branch, you never know when it might come in handy, he said with a smile that made her blush. Ibara, we call you by your name, why don't you call us by ours? She said playing with her hair trying to hide her blush. Izuku, if that's what you want, Ibara, he said with a big smile that made Ibara blush even more. The girls watched the interaction between these two with curiosity, so they decided to approach and sit in a circle around Izuku. Izuku, what's up, girls? He said confused. Kendo, and nothing, we just wanted to sit here, she said with a nervous smile as the girls nodded. Setsuna, I have a question, she said for everyone to hear. What will happen after we manage to stop all this? Will we just go our separate ways and forget this adventure? She said somewhat sadly. At that moment, all the girls started to think, it was true, they didn't have any plan for after the storm. But Izuku's smile was enough to reassure them. Izuku, if you allow me, I'll stick with you, you're my family, I would never abandon my family, he said with a big smile, making the girls smile. Ibara, of course we'll allow you, we want to be with you forever, she said with a big smile as the girls nodded. At that moment, the green-haired one blushed a little, which didn't go unnoticed by the girls. Izuku, well, I think I'll start preparing the food, he said with a smile as the girls nodded and he walked away. Kanoko, he looks really cute when he's embarrassed, she said giggling. Girls, yeah, they said with a silly smile. At that moment, the girls reacted and blushed. Ibara, what are we thinking? She said blushing. Yui, I don't know, it's just that. I think. I like him, she said blushing, looking at the ground. At that moment the girls were surprised, although if they thought about it, why were they competing to see who was the favorite of the green-haired one? Now that they thought about it, they realized they weren't competing for that. They were competing for who would be the closest to the green-haired one. Yui, and I don't think I'm the only one, she said seriously, looking at the girls. Setsuna, well, I also care for him, she said, looking away while playing with her hair. Reiko, me too, she said blushing, looking at the ground. Pony just lowered her head, embarrassed in affirmation. Kanoko, I don't think it's just caring. Who am I kidding, I care for him too, she said, lowering her head. Ibara, he has a special place in my heart, she said blushing. Kendo, turning her head blushing. At that moment all the girls looked at each other. They all had feelings for the green-haired one, and why wouldn't they? He's the person who protected them, took care of them, and saved them. It was obvious something like this would happen, but no one imagined that all of them. Reiko, so? What will we do? She said, confused. The girls didn't want to compete with anyone, especially not over a boy's affection. They just looked at each other for a few seconds and nodded. Setsuna, we could. Now we can see all the guys enjoying the green-haired one's delicacy. Kirishima, man. I don't know how you do it, but this is delicious, he said, while everyone, even Bakugo, nodded. Izuku, well, it's all about practicing, he said, laughing a bit. My mother taught me how to cook because she was hardly ever home and I had to make my own food. At first, it tasted awful, but then I saw how spices and all that affected it. I honed my skills until I cook like I do now, he said with a smile that slightly made the girls blush. Yui, so? What do we do? She said, confused. Bakugo, I already told them how the nerd and I set a pool on fire, he said, so everyone could see, incredulous. Izuku, I'll tell them, he said, chuckling to himself. Time skip. We can see all the guys loading stuff into the car to leave. They started packing everything ready to move to another place closer to their destination. They finished packing everything into Bakugo's van since it was the most spacious and they wouldn't split up until they reached the other continent. It was fine for Bakugo, being the one with the spacious car, to take everything. After finishing, they sat for a moment around the table to rest a bit and prepare to leave. The girls chatted on one side and the boys on the other. Bakugo, we're leaving this place, he said somewhat happily. Kirishima, finally. I was getting tired of us being stuck here, he said, stretching. Bakugo, and nerd, he said, catching Izuku's attention, what will you do with them? He said, referring to the girls. Izuku, I'll defend them with my life if necessary, he said with a determined smile that made both of them smile proudly. Bakugo, always looking out for others before yourself, you're awesome, deku, he said, smiling. Kirishima, Bakugo's right. Even though this world has gone to hell, you're a great hero, for sure your parents would be proud of you, he said as Bakugo nodded. Izuku, yeah. Thanks, he said with a big smile. Elsewhere. So. How are we doing? He asked, confused. Scientist 1, sir, the virus has done its job, we've eradicated 95% of the world's population, he said seriously. Question mark, that's very good, he said with a big smile. The world was full of fake heroes, bad people, why not start anew? He said with a smile. Scientist 2, but sir, what about your wife, your son? He said, confused. Question mark, my wife is likely already dead. And my son, he said, pausing, he's probably already on his way here to stop me, he said proudly. Scientist 3, well sir, we need to withdraw to continue with the coordinates, he said as the men nodded. Return to your posts, he said. All, yes, sir, they said, striking a military pose before leaving. I know you're coming to me, son. Izuku, he said looking at a photo of the green-haired boy when he was young. With the boys. Now we can see everyone in their respective cars ready to venture onto the road. The girls waited for the right moment to talk to the green-haired one but couldn't find a topic until someone asked. Ibara, so? Where are we going? She said confused. Izuku, where are we going? He said looking at the girls. At that moment, the girls nodded affirming to her question. At that moment, the green-haired one just smiled as he looked at the road behind Bakugo's car while the wind from the road came through the window and slowly turned into night, creating a somewhat pleasant and relaxing atmosphere. Izuku, we're going to a better place, he said with a big smile as the girls, also somewhat blushing, put on that smile, that motivating smile, that smile that only Izuku could make, and that whenever the girls saw it, there was something that told them that even though everything looked bad, it would be okay. Why? Because he was there.